Hi everyone, I'm Berene from Happy So Lucky. Today I'm going to tell you how to applique circles. In particular, I'm talking about this Sisterhood block that I designed for International Women's Day. Many of you have signed up for the swap, which is probably why you're watching this video. Thanks for joining in this community drive that we're doing. And so this is what I'm talking about, appliquing the little heads on. Now this is the 12-inch block. As you no doubt know, if you have the pattern, there are two sizes. The pattern for the swap is actually the 16-inch size, which is this one. This is one I did with African shwe fabric and some homespun linen, which I haven't made into anything yet. But for the swap, we're doing this size, but in the same idea of background here with the low volume backgrounds. So you'll be shipping off to your swap partners things like this. Either you'll be shipping off 7 of these or 7 of these. Alright, let's get started. So the first thing you're going to do when you applique is you want to print out your templates. So on this particular pattern, because there's two sizes, there's two sections of your templates. The top templates have the seam allowance attached, so that's for cutting the fabric. The bottom ones are what we're going to use for appliquing, making the little applique circles. So I print mine on cardstock. I find it a lot easier to get a nice sharp edge. You want to have a nice sharp edge on your little applique piece. You can use paper. It just sometimes scrunches up a little bit with this technique. Some people use freezer paper. There are also other techniques other than this technique, such as needle turn applique, or some people use foil to wrap their templates. This is just the one that I like to use, so that's why I'm sharing it with you today. So for the swap people, you want to cut out all your pieces, all your templates from the 16-inch block section. So one of the fabric cutting templates, and the rest of them are what you're going to use for forming your little circles. So those are those templates. The first thing you're going to do is cut some fabrics in the colors that you want. So I've got a couple of different skin tones here, and you want them slightly bigger. Whoops, that's upside down. You want them slightly bigger than your template, obviously, and you're just going to hold it in the middle and cut around it. It doesn't have to be too perfect. You want it fairly good, but not too perfect, because you're never going to see these edges. They're going to be turned inwards. So something like that. And then you're done with that template for now. And you're now moving on to the applique templates, which are the ones that have no seam allowance. And what we're going to do is we're going to punch a little hole in the center of them. You can use one of these, or a big double punch. If you don't have a punch, you could use an X-Acto knife and just make a little X in the middle. You just need to be able to access into there later on. The next step is we're going to stitch a running stitch all the way around the edge of this little piece. You want to be about a millimeter in from the edge and all the way around, and we don't back stitch or anything, so I'm just going to come in from behind. Doesn't really matter top or bottom, and you want to leave yourself a thread of about that long, couple of inches. It's not too imperative, and you can do a few stitches at a time, like 3 or 4 at a time, just like that. So you want to be close to the edge, but not so close that it pulls away and frays on the edge. You want to keep your edge nice and a very nice cut edge. Whoops. Something like that. And you're going to go all the way around until you get back to here, and you want both of your threads to come out the same side as I have. Let's put that one there, as I have on this one. So you can see my starting and my ending thread come out the same side, and it's just a simple little circle of running stitch. So I'm going to turn it upside down in my hand so that the threads that are coming out underneath, and I'll just hold it like that. And I'm going to take my template with a hole in it and put it in the center, and this little split second moment is the part that I love the most about this technique. So you put your thumb down in the middle and you just pull these threads gently, and then you just pull it over that way and pull it so that, whoops, you want to pull it downwards and then just pinch it down like that. So this is what's holding the thread in. And once you have that, you're going to give it a little iron. So I'm just going to pull that taut again. You want to have the steam off of your iron because you don't want to burn your fingers. The steam can burn you quite badly. And once you've pressed that, you can then just tie a little double knot in it. Whoops. So you want to be able to hold it so that it's fairly tightly held. So just, that's good enough. And then you just cut the little threads off. And so there you have it. And as you can see on the front end, you have a nice smooth edge here. And on the back end, you've got all your seam allowance fairly evenly pulled in. Now, if you had made very big stitches, you'd have sharp jagged folds on here. So that's why you want to make smaller stitches. Whoops. I'm going to show you that one more time, the little moment where it flips. Let's just pop a hole in that. So I turn it upside down so that the threads are coming out the underneath part. I put my template in the middle and I just give it a little tug and then pull this downwards and secure it with my thumb like that. So to remove the cardboard, you want to cut it out. One would think that because it's a small cut you would use these kinds of scissors, but they're very sharp and you don't want to cut the fabric. So instead we're going to use these chaps. You just slide the scissor tip in underneath there, taking care you don't want to poke the fabric underneath. So you slide the scissor tip in and you just gently cut it. As you can see now, I'm going underneath that seam allowance because you don't want to cut the seam allowance and you don't want to cut your thread. And I'm going all the way to the end, almost, and I'm not cutting the fabric on the front or the back at all. Taking care to do that. And then once you have done that, you just have to pull this cardboard out. Oops, it's caught on the thread there. There we go. Just pop it out and you're good to go. And then I'll just give it one more little, when I yank that thread there, pulled it a bit. There we go, let's straighten it up nicely. There we go. So you can see it's nicely smoothed out and ready to be stitched on. So it's really simple. Once you've got those guys ready to go, you're then going to position it in place on one of your piece blocks. So in this particular pattern, the ladies are paper piece, as you can see, so you need to join your two pieces together, and then you're going to be appliquing it. And one thing I will say, if you are doing this pattern, when you applique these, because both this section and this section are number one, if you use the same technique I use with a glue stick, you want to try and avoid this area with the glue stick because it's just tricky to stitch through it if it's stuck down to the paper. So we're going to glue base this on, and I like to use this brand over here, Roxanne's. You can also use just regular white glue. You can also use a glue stick, but I find this one you can get a tiny bit of glue on it. You can also get nozzles for these containers. I just use a little skewer. I'm just going to get my knife box here. So I'm going to put my little lady in place there. And I'm going to take a tiny little bit of glue on the end. And you just want enough, you're not trying to glue it in case there's a hurricane. You just want to glue it enough to hold it in place while you stitch it. Because your stitches are really what's going to hold it down. So just small little dabs of glue. And while I'm here, I'm just going to pull those guys in and let them get secured there, my threads. So you don't want you don't want to get any glue in the center. You don't want it seeping through, and you also don't want the center sucked down, otherwise you're going to have a sort of a kink in your head. Okay, so I have my light box on. You probably can't see it on the camera, but I can see where the lines are for the circle. And I have my little bit of glue based on the head. So I'm just going to go right in there and position her head in place. I'm just going to press it down. And then I'm going to iron it with a no steam iron, a dry iron. And all that's doing really is drying the glue so that I can then applique it and to stitch it into place. So there you go, it's ready to be stitched. Okay, so now that your template piece has been stuck on, we just need to stitch it to secure it. I have a thread here that's a matching colored thread to the fabric, or as close as I had. It's important that it does match the top piece that you're appliquing on. And not a very long piece, but on the end you can see I have a double knot. And I'm going to slide my needle in underneath there, just catching the seam allowance. I don't want to catch the top, I just want to catch the underneath part. And I'm going to slide it in like that and pull it so that the knot gets caught in those little creases of the seam allowance. And then just for insurance sake, I'm going to make a little double stitch here. So now my thread is nice and secure and the end has been lost in there. So now I'm going to come up through just a couple of threads on the edge. As you can see, I want the thread to be on the top piece, the piece that I'm appliquing. So my stitches as I go are going to be small stitches, a couple of millimeters at a time, and you're going to go down, so straight down from where you are at the top, you go straight down in along a couple of millimeters and then back up again. So that's what your stitch should look like. And you just push it through and pull it up, and then you just repeat a couple of millimeters along through the underneath piece and up through just a couple of stitches of a couple of threads of the fabric on the top. It's probably not as tiny as it should have been. I'm trying to point it towards the camera so that you guys can see it, but I can't see it where I'm doing it. Oops. And you just gently go all the way around as you go. This is very calming work to do, and it's a great thing to do if you need to take work on the road with you. So you could prep all your pieces, glue the heads down and put them in a Ziploc bag, and then, you know, if you have to go somewhere where you're sitting waiting for your kid in music lessons, or you're watching TV or something like that, you can just sit quietly and do this, and it's quite meditative, I find. So I'm going to go all the way around, and then I'm going to show you how to end it off. Okay, so now I'm almost all the way around. I've got a little gap here still, and I'm going to show you how you finish off your thread. So I'm going to do one last little stitch here, and then I'm going to do oops. You can see I'm going to do just a little double stitch underneath and grab the tip again, and then a double stitch just in the sideways. So I'm going sort of underneath the fabric, the top head piece if I can, and when I pull the thread I'm going to leave a small loop like that, if you can see that little loop there, and I'm going to thread my needle back through that loop and just give it a tug. So that way I've got a double stitch and a little knot that's finished it off, and then I'm going to slide my needle underneath through a gap between the stitches, and I'm going between this top piece of fabric and the back one piece of fabric, and I'm just sliding it through, and I'll just make it a longish thread and just pull it through here at any random point really, and then I'm just going to pull it taut and cut it close to without cutting the head fabric, and there you go. Okay, now I'm going to show you a little life hack that I discovered the other day by mistake, and I love it. So we're going to do the step where we pull this up again, and this little trick is for when you're on the road, perhaps you're going to retreat and you don't want to take an iron, or you're going on holiday somewhere, maybe you're a commuter and you have a long train ride. as long as you have access to the power but you can't take your iron, this is a great trick for you. So again, we have our stitched fabric with the threads coming out underneath. I'm going to put my little holy template in the middle, and I'm going to pull it as I've done before, and pull it down. Just give it a nice firm pull. And then instead of using an iron for this, we're going to use a straightening iron. This is an easy thing to take on holiday with you. You might be taking it with you anyway. And you're just going to squeeze it in there without burning your fingers. So you can see I've got a little tip sticking out there where I was holding it. Whoop, don't do that. Give it a nice firm press. And then just do the other side that you haven't done before. Oh, whoops, see, there we go. Don't burn yourself, easy to do. But the beauty of this is it's very mobile, and it does just as good a job as what the iron does, possibly even better. So that's my life hack tip. So then just to finish off, for those of you in the swap, these are the triangles that you'll be shipping out to your friend. As I have mentioned to you, some of you will be doing the EF blocks and the others will be doing the GH blocks. But when you get all your 7 blocks in the mail, you should end up with what I have over here, which I'm going to show you. Oops, mine are not quite finished yet. But you should end up with your 8 triangles with heads on all of them. As you can see, I'm still putting heads on mine. But that's what you should end up with, and then you can put all your pieces together and you will end up with your beautiful 16-inch version of this guide, which you can make into a pillow or a bag or a mini quilt, whatever it is that's in your fancy. And thanks again everyone for participating in this challenge. We've raised a lot of money for charity and I really do appreciate it.